Good evening, everybody. I want to call this instruction work group to order. Happy New Year, y'all. Do we have any public comment? So we have no public comment this evening, so we're going to jump to minutes. We have one. We have one. Are you signed up for public comment?
I can see where the sign up paper is.
Oh,
Are they here?
Oh, yeah, they're up here. Sorry,
Oh.
I didn't know you wanted to speak.
like, I'll bring you up. Don't worry. I'm like, are we having public comment in a specific space with a computer?
I didn't look at you already because I didn't a commenter, but you can use mine if you want.
I should have known. Yeah, but come on up, come on up. You can use mine
Or we can switch the in the room to show your face. Oh,
I think like this table is where we've had people.
Yeah.
You can, yeah. You know.
do we do it? Yes.
Oh, to me. All right, so we have one public speaker. I thought joining us this evening. You've got 3 minutes.
Evening, everybody. I'm here today because I know that there's going to be some discussion about the Pathway Career and College Academy tonight. I wanted to put just a few things out there for the board to consider and questions maybe to ask when you just kind of probe into things further. This is although I'm usually here representing Manton Mamas and disability advocates, I also collaborate a lot with other community advocates. And so what I'm sharing tonight is thoughts from one of my partners out in the community, but also I share the same concerns and have some of the same questions. So I'm going to be relaying some of her thoughts first with her permission. And I have this, and board member Vandermeulen also has access to this. And I'll be sending this all to emails tonight, just so they're in front of you as you guys kind of go further in looking into this. So we're urging the board to pay particular attention to the proposed charters plans regarding students with disabilities and students that are coming in with IEPs that are already supported. We're asking the questions we'll be undertaking to serve students across the full range of abilities. I also want to make sure that this premises that we also have advanced learners that might be included in there that might also need adaptive programming. And especially our students that are twice exceptional, so students with IEP and advanced learners as well. Staffing proposal looks in our terms woefully skimpy regarding special education, as we have 1 CC teacher and 0.25 aides per 150 students. We're wondering who will be providing job coaching for students who need that level of support in order to do the work in the community that the school is envisioning. Does the school intend to exclude students altogether if they need a one-on-one level of staffing or any academic efforts to be a thriving student in their school? And if the staffing proposal is set in stone, at what point do they intend to draw a line regarding the level of what disability that they may even allow in or seem acceptable to come into that particular environment and to use their programming? If the answers are not convincing to the proposed academic ability to support students across the full range, because oftentimes we actually don't know what kind of support our students are going to need. Are they going to be asking for more allocation from MMSD in order to support these students as well? We're looking if the board, do they have a duty to decline if they're going to say no to anything that's above, or is there an acceptable answer? Like, are we going to have expectations set that say, as long as we're meeting these standards, that we're going to be okay with it? And on the flip side, let's say that they have answers that are there. What does accountability look like? I work a lot within Madison School District, and I'm in a lot of charter schools all the time. And it's particularly difficult sometimes to get compliance when it comes to meeting expectations of the IEP. that we don't have to look for DPI complaint processes in order to get that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I move to approve the minutes from the instruction work group meeting dated December 9th, 2024.
Okay.
Thank you, Board Vice President Pearson. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Megan. Your advisory vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, that passes unanimously. We get to have two pretty exciting conversations tonight, or one really exciting conversation and a really exciting update. Tonight, we're focusing on summer school for 2025, which is, man, this year just comes right at you. Get started right.
Always good when
It is.
most parents talk about something.
We're also gonna get an update from the super wellness advisory committee. Before we dive into the first part of our presentation, first of all, I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent, Joe Gothard.
Thank you very much, Chair Muldrow, board members. Thank you for being here tonight, staff. Two presentations tonight to share updates and also plans for the future. I'm excited to have Nicole Schaefer and Cindy Green share some updates around summer school, both kind of where we've been, what we've developed, and even more so what we're planning for 25 and beyond. I think there's some exciting updates that our community will be very excited to hear. And also for us to continue to reframe what summer school is. Very much a deficit model years ago. I think we've moved into more of the enrichment areas that students really choose and are looking to perhaps gain extra credits or can deepen their skills and opportunities in areas that we're trying to meet their needs as well. So I think there's an exciting opportunity for us to continue to meet those needs, but to also help our students dream. Sometimes out of the school day, what it could mean to learn new ideas from new people in new spaces. And of course, always focusing on relationships as students. District. So with that, so I don't give the whole presentation, I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Green and she'll introduce Nicole Schaefer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gothard, and thank you both. I am really looking forward to this presentation tonight. This presentation is really done with the entire set of central office department, with Nicole Schaefer, who's our director of summer programming, and Mary Roth, who is our executive director of MSCR. At the table, we have Dan Davidson, who is our director of arts, Becky Kundert over curriculum and instruction, Mitch Starosik, who is virtual with us, who supports our free technical education, Dr. Nancy Moltender, who supports special education, and many others that are part of ensuring summer programming is successful. And as Dr. Gothard said, we have really tried to think about summer programming more comprehensively outside of just what is required by state for summer programming that may look like a deficit model, but how do we use this as opportunities to test out really exciting opportunities for students where they can engage and learn and explore and things that they may not have the ability to do so during the school year. So hopefully in our presentation tonight, you'll see some of the work that we've been doing in that area. Jesse, next slide, please. Thank you. And always starting with our strategic framework goals. We have 3 goals that we ground all of our work in. Our first goal around every child on track to graduate college, career, community ready. Definitely one of our goals of summer school. The second is the district and every school is a place where our students, families, and staff thrive. And goal number 3, really thinking about our approach to ensure African-American children and youth excel in school. Next slide, please. As I mentioned tonight, we're going to provide an update both on the successes and areas of opportunity for 2024 summer programming, and also give you a highlight and foreshadowing of what we are planning for this upcoming summer as we're on January 6th. It's crazy to be thinking about summer already. And exciting to think about summer. Next slide, please, Jesse. As you know, every month we talk about these 3 guiding practices that we are really trying to instill in our district. Really thinking about our district improvement goals and our performance objectives, building on our core principles of improvement, continuously focusing on how can we do better and how can we get better at doing better. And 3, really building these routines around data and data literacy to inform our decisions and our next steps. Next slide, please. And as we have started this year, wanting to make sure the board and the community are aware of what we are striving for by our district improvement goals. Every one of these goals, I think you will see how we are trying to reach those goals through some of our summer programming efforts that we're going to highlight tonight. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Schaefer, who is our Director of Summer Programming, and she's going to walk through some highlights from this past summer.
Good evening.
Next slide, Jesse.
Great, thank you. Good evening and thanks for the time to present some of our summer plans. We're excited to reflect not only on last summer, but to look ahead to 2025. So our overview will include, like Cindy said, really the collaborative work by many departments as well as partners in the community. And of course, our one of our closest partners is MSCR. So as you can see highlighted here, here are a couple of things that I wanted to lift to make sure that you knew. When you think about all of the different programming that happens over the summer, we serve nearly 4,000 students for K through 12th grade. And we've really invested in MMMC staff by hiring them and compensating them at $40 an hour. And we're fortunate to have folks who know our students, who know the routines, know the buildings, to be there for our kids in the summer. We also offered a very well-rounded full-day opportunity the last couple of years and intend to do so moving forward. Not only are we focused on the academic side of the house in terms of math and literacy, but we are also looking at some of the art opportunities as well as recreation and enrichment. A couple other programs to highlight for last summer. The SEATS program is a collaboration with the Arts Education Program, and that is really about experiences not offered during summer semester or during the academic year. So these are opportunities for kids to access community arts experiences that they would not otherwise have. And then, of course, we have our career technology engineering discovery camps that are targeted for our middle school students. Next slide. So some of our celebrations and opportunities. Summer semester really is a learning support and time for students to accelerate their learning, have some fun, and stay on track for graduation to become college, career, and community ready. During the summer, we strive for 90% attendance. Last summer, we experienced an increase in our overall attendance rate. And I believe an opportunity for us is to really increase the number of students who were recommended to ensure that they enroll and then sustain that attendance over the course of the summer. Elementary students showed growth in both math and reading based on their beginning and end of summer assessments over the 6 weeks. And our high school students successfully earned credit with nearly 100% success rate for credit recovery in nearly all subjects. For next summer, we'll work to increase our first-time offerings, as well as the students and the overall enrollment in those courses. And then, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, this is truly a collaborative effort, and it does take a lot of coordination, and we are always looking to streamline our processes and procedures to make summer semester a really efficient and a great opportunity for our students. Next slide. Arts Explore, a few things to highlight here. We continue to have a strong collaboration with Dan and his team with Arts Education, as well as community partners to offer that well-rounded experience that I mentioned earlier. Arts Explore consists of 4 buckets of work. We have our summer semester experience. We have band and orchestra lessons, high school courses, and the SEATS program. At the high school level, we offered 2 visual art courses for credit. At middle school, we served nearly 250 students in either band or orchestra lessons. And the SEATS program served students K through 12 in 7 different programs this summer. Next slide. So as I mentioned, career and technology education discovery camps. The focus of this program is really to engage middle school students on hands-on career exploration and skill development in various CTE related content that's available at our high school. And you can see here that in our health science camp, as well as our electrical camp. Next slide, please. Here's just a little bit of data. After each one of our programs, we do a pretty comprehensive survey of participants as well as families to get a better sense of what went really well and what do we need to continue to work on. And here you can see that there were 12 camps offered, serving nearly 200 middle school students. And we partnered with over 10 folks in the industry. So very excited about that. Next slide. Another extremely important program is our extended school year, which really serves our students that qualify. They are provided specifically designed instruction to make progress toward their IEP goals. And with our partnership with Summer Semester, we're able to increase and expand our inclusive opportunities and provide staff with some additional experiences as they are working toward their licensure. So a really nice opportunity for extended school year and looking to continue with that partnership as well. Next slide. And at this time, I'll pass it to Mary Roth, our Executive Director at MSCI, and she can continue on with some additional highlights. Mary.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, board members. Happy to be able to share some information about some of the work we did at MSCR in 2024 and some of how we're looking ahead in 2025 to support not only the district and the students in the district, but the entire community. So as Nicole mentioned, we're really excited to continue that we were able to continue the collaboration to offer a single full day option for the summer semester program with MSCR as the afternoon component at the elementary and middle school level. So really bringing the fun, unique field trips, activities, games to the summer experience for our students in elementary and middle school summer semester. At the high school level, we shift to more of a club-based, interest-based model that's open to any student, any youth in the community, school aged. It's not school specific, which really allows students who have a little more mobility in the community to be able to access the programming they're interested in. We also shift toward really supporting that community and career ready component of the strategic framework with our driver's education scholarship program that we run in collaboration with Dane County, as well as our leaders in training program. So this past summer, we had 49 high school students who did a paid training program in the spring semester and then were placed in MSCR summer programs. So a big component of sort of what we think about as our school-based programs really supports that. One of the other things that we think about, we had those 49 students who participated in leaders in training. That was just a small portion of our youth workers who worked in our program. So last summer we had about 28% of all of our staff, so 277 youth employees summer programming. So we think a lot about MSCR as a program provider, but we also really identify as an employer as well, with a lot of those students having their first work experience with us. And we recognize that and try to build that training into their experience working with MSCR. So that's really what a lot of the highlights on our school-based side of the house. And then Jesse, next slide, please. Our school-based programs are really sort of a single component or a big component of what we do, but we also really try to serve the entire community really broadly. So in summer of 24, we had 15 unique camps that ran at 23 different locations. So that's a wide variety of different interest-based models, schedules, full summer models, half-day, 1-week sessions that meet the needs of different families for ages grades 4K through 9th grade. And that's really a place where we see an incredible amount of demand, and that's where we are spending energy realigning where we see the demand at the younger age groups, especially in camp programming, to ensure that we're putting our energy and our resources into the places where we're seeing need in the community, and also maintaining a broad range of options for all of our youth at the camp program. The other thing that was really exciting in 2024 is that we rebranded our mobile programs under the name MSCR on the Move. Many of you may be familiar with Art Cart. It's been around. We also has previously had a program called Fit to Go. And in 2024, they rolled out as MSCR on the Move. So we have Play on the Move, Play on the Move, which is a mobile pottery program, as well as Art Cart that bring exploration, play, fun, creativity out into the community for drop-in outdoor experiences for our community members to really be able to experience MSCR wherever they are, whether that's in their neighborhood park, a community event, places like that. It was really hugely successful with that rebrand. So all of that in 24, we're looking forward to continuing to build on the momentum. 24 felt very much like the most stable summer we've had post-pandemic. So continuing to build on that momentum and ensuring that we're aligning our programming energy and our programming resources to where there's need, while continuing to support district vision as well as the community more broadly. That I'll put back to Cindy.
Thank you so much, Mary. So Nicole and Mary both shared some of the really great work from 24. There's a lot happening outside of just the traditional literacy and math programming. We feel really great about what we were able to provide to our students and also thinking about those opportunities of improvement. So I want to spend a minute focusing on what we are moving forward with for 25. So for summer 25, some of the new things that we are considering is our middle school students are going to have their programming at our high schools. If you remember the last few years, summer, the high schools were closed due to renovations. And so this summer, for the first summer in many years, our high schools are going to be open and fully operating. And so we see it as a great opportunity to have our middle school students take their summer programming at our high schools. One, it's a great opportunity for thinking about transitions as they get to know our high buildings, but also to be able to take advantage of our new spaces that are there, our CTE spaces, our art spaces, some of the other spaces as well, so that their programming can expand beyond just literacy and math. And it's also air conditioning in those locations, so we see it as a great opportunity. So middle school and high school will be in our high schools. High schools will continue with a hybrid option, as that's been something very successful for our high school students to have the flexibility of virtual options as well as in-person as needed. This past summer, as you heard Nicole mention, we had our discovery camps, which were those CTE camps. Culinary, robotics, engineering. We had 12 camps last summer. This summer, we are expanding it and we're going to potentially have 14 or more discovery camps, again, for our middle school students. In addition to that, in the career and technical area, last summer, we served over 250 students that were provided with paid internships through our partnership with the city and our CBOs. That will continue this summer, and we're hoping to grow more than that. So we'll have more than 250 students getting paid internships this summer in an area that they're interested in and exploring for a future. Last summer, we started a partnership with one of our neighborhood centers, Bayview, where Bayview offered our summer programming at their neighborhood center. We found great success in that. So this summer, we will continue with Bayview, and we hope to expand to a second neighborhood center, potentially on the east side, so that we can continue to see how summer programming can not only be housed in our schools, but out in the community as well. We're going to continue to expand first-time credit course offering. Last summer, teachers had an application process where they could propose new courses that they wanted to offer in the summer, again, for more exploration and to get out of just this deficit-based approach for summer. We are in the process of running those applications now, and we're really excited to continue that and see what teachers are proposing for this summer for additional first-time credit offerings. We are really excited to offer for the first time ever what we call CDF Freedom Schools. So the Children's Defense Fund Freedom Schools will be running this summer in MMSD. I will talk a little more in detail about that on the next slide. I wanted to also foreshadow, thanks. I wanted to also foreshadow for the Board of Education that this spring, we will be bringing forth our policy related to promotion. Currently, we have a policy related to promotion for 4th grade and 8th grade. With Act 20, which is the Reading Act that focuses on literacy proficiency by 3rd grade, there will be an additional policy implication that we need to take into consideration. That will go into effect for summer of 26, but we will be discussing that and bringing forth a recommended policy for the Board of Education this spring. So we wanted to foreshadow that as well. In addition to that, we're anticipating approximately 1,500 students for elementary, that's for K-5, middle school about 600 students, and approximately 1,600 students for our high schools. Next slide, please, Jessie. So I mentioned on the last slide that we are going to be offering what we call CDF Freedom Schools. It's important to note that we applied for CDF Freedom Schools, and we are the only school in the state of Wisconsin so far to offer this opportunity. What is Freedom Schools? Freedom Schools is an amazing summer program opportunity for students. It focuses on infusing cultural relevant pedagogy and fostering a love of reading. So it really focuses on Black culture and literacy together. It has students build areas of focus around civic engagement. It involves the families and the parents. It connects community members. It also engages faith-based organizations, talks about intergenerational servant leadership development, and social action. So this Freedom School opportunity that we were accepted to will offer at Mendota Elementary School this summer. It will focus on 50 students in grades K through 4. And they will have the opportunity to engage in the programming of Freedom Schools and really focus on building Black culture and a love for reading and literacy during the school day. The program will run full day just as the rest of our other summer school programming, 8 to 4. And students will be in class sizes of a 1-to-10 ratio is what the program has. We're really excited about this opportunity and to be able to learn from what we will do this summer at Mendota to see where future expansion of Freedom Schools might happen. Next slide, please. And for summer 25, we are continuing to recommend the pay rate for our teachers at $40 an hour and the hourly rate for our classified staff. If you recall back to one of the slides Nicole talked about, 98% of our staff were hired, our MSD staff. We believe part of that is due to the increased pay rate that we've had over the last few years. We found a great promise in offering $40 an hour, and we want to continue for our staff. One last thing before we close out and I turn it back over to Board Member Muldrow is in addition to the information we provided tonight, there is a supplementary set of materials in your board docs that is a more detailed report of some of the data and some of the outcomes from summer of 24 that happened. At this point, Jessie, next slide. I'll turn it back over to Chair Muldrow for questions and discussion.
Thank you so much. Board Member Vandermillen, I saw your hand first, and then other board members have questions or would like to discuss summer school. Want to give the team a shout out for getting us through K through 12 summer school and all the opportunities, many of the opportunities we're offering to students in about 23 minutes.
Let your record,
And like you all
5 and 25.
And it was,
Here we go.
and it was a very, very thorough presentation, so I'm sure folks have real questions, some discussion they want to engage in. Board Member Vandermillen and then Board President Sickles. Okay, and then Blair.
Absolutely.
Blair might have been before me.
Okay.
First, thank you, but the Bears may not have the best season this year. We're continuing that previous discussion. But very, very simply, I really like the increased programming. I like the increased options. I think it'll be quite helpful for all students. On that, my question is, are students with disabilities, can accommodations still be made if they're not extended school year or ESY?
So currently, students in the summertime are able to attend summer programming if they have an IEP, but if they're not in ESY, we currently do not work within their IEP during their summer school time.
And my second question is on the Freedom Schools.
Mhm.
Sounds incredibly interesting. Sounds incredibly fascinating. Question on faith-based. How is that going to be done? Is it still separation of church and state? Like, I am assuming, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, just to make sure it's not religious instruction.
Oh, 100, great question. Thank you for that. Yes, it is not bringing in religious instruction. What we are trying to do, part of Freedom Schools is really about a community-based effort. And so we want to ensure that the individuals we're working with are within our community, and some of those individuals in the community could be through our faith-based organizations. We're working with our neighborhood centers and our community centers. But it is really about both within the school and then the school within the community for the work.
Sounds wonderful.
Great question. Thank you.
So that's
Board
all.
Member Mosna Feltman, thank you for your questions. Board Member Vanderbilt.
Oh, can y'all hear me okay?
And
Great. Hi, I miss you. Sorry. So cool. Thank you so much for the presentation. I find it all to be super duper exciting. Nice work. I think I would offer two thoughts. One is about the Leaders in Training program that puts high school students in the elementary MSCR programming. I would, I'm not doing your job, but like, to what extent and how can we see that in the school year? I know that one of the struggles that MSCR has in their after school programming during the regular school year is staffing. And to me, finding ways that our high school students can earn credit as a leader in training type of thing, and support the younger people in our city who are in MSCR after school feels like a real opening. Sort of connected to that, many of you know that I've long been interested in thinking about how we can be creative with I see there's like a visual problem. Is it just the back one? Or it's okay?
no, we can see you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're good, Blair.
Wait, you've been
Okay.
speaking, thing you've been interested in for a long time, Blair.
Yep, is how we can be creative with the scheduling. And to me, we're talking 4,000 students. That's a lot of that's a lot of students. And so to me, it feels like all of this amazing work is signaling that we can be successfully creative with the school year calendar. And it's something I'm interested in. And then the last thing that I would want to say is I hear we're doing all this stuff in the summer that we can't do during the academic year. And as we continue to talk about in what ways are we aiming to be innovative in our instructional program, I hope that we're learning a lot from the successes of these summer programs. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board Member Mosler Feltham, and sorry, a mint in my mouth. I just started on your day. Thank you so much, Board Member Blair. Yes, I think we are excited to continue to test things out in summer, not just for summer, but what we can learn about that we can bring into the school year and scale and or implement. So I really appreciate those comments and those thoughts.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Board President Nichols.
Thank you. Well, thanks for a lot of the new ideas in this presentation, and kind of what getting and summarizing is that summer school is turning into kind of a safe space with trying out new ideas through instruction and engaging families and students. So yeah, I'm wondering kind of well, particularly, is I guess 2 or 3 questions, particularly with the Freedom Schools, what kinds of supports will we get from CDF to implement this? And then what will we be looking to measure to inform whether, we would like to implement this during the school year, or we would like to continue and double down and expand on this for next summer?
I'll start answering, then I might turn it over to Dr. Gothard. So they provide extensive training. Our team goes in a few weeks for a few days of training at their site, which is the Alex Haley Farm in Tennessee. And then they provide training for the staff as well. In addition to that, they have a wealth of resources. They have individuals that will be supporting us along the way. So those are some of the supports we will receive from them, mostly training and how to implement. We have not discussed metrics yet in terms of the specifics of what we will measure, but I know Dr. Gothard has experience. I'll have him see if he can answer.
Thank you, Cindy. So a few things. I've supervised 500 to 800 students in 2 sites for the last 7 years in this program. And one of the most common things that I get is, why can't this be the all year school experience? It is that profound for the students and families who are part of it for a lot of reasons. In many cases, it's smaller. There's a great adult to student ratio. There's small breakout groups. There's a high interest. Of course, the cultural ability and the pedagogy is aimed at many times unlocking a power within students that they don't even realize that they possess. And so, the other piece is the strong community ties many times brings in folks from the community who know our students and know our families who can be part of that day. And, you know, I think for us to look at how this could become a year-round program would be a step way down the line. But first, having this be just an excellent experience for us to start with 50 and to see what the interest is in growing it in our summers for the next several years before we would consider, you know, how to bring this into an everyday experience. Thank you.
All right, Board President Nichols.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Chair Muldrow. Thank you all for hearing everything for tonight. I do have a couple of questions. The first one I want to start with is the attendance rate. You shared in your memo as well as in the presentation that there was an improvement in this most recent summer up to 83% from the year before at 78%. I'm wondering, does the state set the 90% attendance, or do we set the 90% attendance to be consistent with our attendance goal year, you know, in the regular academic year?
We said it, yeah, it's consistent with the consistent year round.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm curious is, when we look at our trend data over years around attendance, I don't have the every summer attendance rate, but I don't know that we've hit 90%. And I'm wondering, at what point do we look at data and go, seems like we're holding a really high standard that we would normally have in an academic year. Something isn't playing out that way in the summer. Would it be worth us maybe adjusting it, not to lower a standard for our students, but maybe reflect more of like reality? I'm not sure, and I'm not recommending anything because I don't consider myself an expert in it, but it just seems like every year we kind of come back and we're happy with small improvements in attendance, but I have not yet seen us get to the 90% in the summer semester. And I don't know if it's worth looking at. I don't know if you have a response to that.
I think it's worth looking at, and I don't know if it's necessarily about changing attendance, like our threshold, but I do think that what we have seen is how we make adjustments to programming that also is important. So again, for middle school right now is an area where our attendance has been the lowest in the last few years. And so what we're doing this upcoming summer, as I mentioned, is both expanding kind of those discovery camps and moving programming to the high school to allow for more course offerings for students that we believe is going to have a more engaging experience for students, so that they're not just having literacy and math. In K-5, we saw when we added the arts programming in the summer with the Shrek, we saw our attendance increase as well. So I think we're testing some things out. And I'm not saying that what you're suggesting is not worth us taking back and considering. I do think it's a really good point. And I think it's also where we're trying to continue to refine what summer programming means and where we're able to meet both what we are hoping students are able to receive and what students want in the summer. So I think it's that balance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess, one of the things I do remember we used to do, and just update me if I'm wrong, is, you know, once a student was identified and invited to summer school, that attendance standard kind of became the way in which students were, if they missed the 3 absences, they were out. And it didn't, and I'm not sure if that still is happening, but it's like, if you missed a day of summer school, even in the first 3 weeks, you sometimes hit the total maximum number of days allowed to hit your attendance. And so you might have students and families who still want to continue summer school, but because of the way we're measuring and managing attendance, now they're not coming anymore. And so again, I don't pretend to be an expert on the attendance piece, but I do wonder, as we're thinking about diversifying and innovating programming, what else do we need to do maybe on the policy and procedure end that can also help retain as many students as possible? So I would love for us to maybe take a look at the attendance piece.
We did change that practice, but I
Okay.
still appreciate the comment for us to look at. I think it's a really good comment for us to take back and explore. But we did change. I know exactly when you.
Okay, so we're not doing that anymore?
Not like that you're.
Okay.
doing now.
Okay, that's great.
It's definitely changed. But I do think just in general, the comment around exploring attendance and where we are with that, I think is worth us taking.
Okay, appreciate that. My next question is also related to something that you had in the memo. And you kind of you talked about it just a little bit in the presentation, but in the memo, when you talked about the students who are invited versus those who are invited and enrolled. I don't know why, but I was shocked to see that in 2024, 38% of the students invited to the summer semester ultimately enrolled. And although that was an increase from the summer before, when it was at 36%, 38% doesn't seem very high to me. So again, families make choices, right? Their students are identified, they're invited. Lots of people go on vacation, lots of people have other things going on. So I don't know that I would expect it to be 100%, but I'm curious about 38%. So I don't know if you have additional context that you can share. Is that kind of what we have seen over the years? Is that somewhere around the 30 to less than 40% of those invited actually enroll? And if more students and their families actually accepted the invitation, like it was at 80%, could we handle that in our enrollment?
So I think one of the things we have seen so thanks for bringing that up. One of the things we've seen change or shift is that we have limited the number of invitations due to the fact that we do have seat capacity in each of our sites to ensure that we are not in a scenario where we have too many kids and we can't staff. So because we've been there before, we don't want to repeat that. So we do have seat capacity, so therefore that has adjusted the number of invitations. And so I think that has been reflective of the number of families that actually accept the invitation.
I would add.
What do you mean? Do you mean because there's fewer invitations going
invitations.
out? Fewer families are accepting proportionately? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I see.
I would also just mention too, that we have a fixed budget that we work with.
Yeah,
And so within that fixed budget is part of how we determine the sweet spot of the number of students we can serve currently, right? There's discussions if we wanted to explore that differently, but the budget for summer toggles between two fiscal years, right?
Yeah.
We started it in June, July, this, we have essentially a set amount or fixed amount that we had for the last few years, so we also numbers to hire also for students. Now, I think moving forward, it's gonna have to change anyways, based on what I mentioned around policy changes for Act 20.
Yeah.
So we're definitely gonna have to explore that, and I think ESSER was an opportunity that we were able to explore other ways too. It's how we started our arts in program, Summer Arts Academy, where that we've been able to sustain. So there's some other things that we've been able to do, but there has been a fixed budget for summer as well.
Right, I know that. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
that we've had a fixed budget. So let me, I don't know if this is, I don't think I'm tracking. I get that we have limited the invitations. And even with that, when we send the invitations out, wouldn't we hope to have like 80% of those invited saying yes to the summer semester? Or,
We've seen an increase from last year, but it is
right, 2
still
percentage points.
significantly- It is significantly lower than what we'd like to see.
Okay,
So it's one of our opportunities definitely for moving forward.
so do we know why families say no? Have we done any follow-up?
We
The two
last
summers.
two years ago, we did a pretty in-depth look at, rationale or reasons as to why families are opting not, once they're invited, to your point. And it was really kind of a variety of things. A lot of it was a move or potential change of schools or a vacation, change of plans. There really wasn't any one really large or common theme. There was a variety of things. And that's what we had gone through. That's
I would say the one thing though that we did learn that we changed was that in the past, if you remember, students would be invited to summer school and it would be half-day programming and then optional for the afternoon.
Yeah.
And what we heard from families, especially K-6, before K-6, is that the full-day programming was something that they desired because it worked with their schedule. And so that is one of the changes
Yeah.
that we made last summer for the first 2 summers ago, to offer that full day and really started to strengthen the partnership with MSCR. So that is something we learned through that study, but we did a few years ago work with, at the time it was Rocket, but we worked with them to do some extensive learning because we were grappling with why also. And we also heard that students were interested in things outside of just the traditional academics.
Yeah,
Which is where some of the other things is that we're starting to add.
okay. Do you know, and I won't belabor this, but I am curious, when the letter goes out saying your student has been identified, kind of going back to Dr. Gothard's opening comments about wanting to shift the perception of summer semester from a deficit thing to an opportunity to continue learning, does the letter still indicate that your student has not met a certain criteria and that's why they're on the invitation list? You know what I mean?
I would like to believe that the letter looks and reads much better, but, and we've run it through several, reiterations basically. And it really does draw on the full day programming with enrichment and recreation as well as Arts Explore. So it does open up a lot more than what it used to read.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's always room for improvement.
Yes, I remember the
Yeah.
previous
Yeah.
summer school letters.
Yeah,
It might,
And I don't mean that in a negative way,
Yeah,
I'm just
No, I
saying,
know what you mean.
yeah,
yeah.
they always
I-
read as like, oh, wah, wah, wah.
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, well, I don't know why that 38% of those invited who enrolled stood out to me, but it did. And, let me just, before I ask my final question, let me just ask this. what, do you know if our actual summer school budget was close to the 3.7 million
Yes.
or three?
I
You
mean, in
know,
terms of what we use.
yeah, in terms of what your actuals.
Yes.
It
I
was-
mean, we straddle 2 years, right, because we conclude in June. But yes, this past year, definitely, because we basically inherited the Arts Explorer, which was funded through ESSER. So that was all something that we inherited, as well as the expansion of our high school, first time credit.
Yeah.
So with those costs incurred, that definitely took us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been some really nice enhancements and some innovations during summer semester, which I really appreciate. And I don't know, it feels like with what we invest, I would hope that every young person that could benefit from it, you know what I mean, like that they and or their families would want to take advantage of it. The last thing I do wanted to circle back to was last January, our first work group of the year for 2024, we actually started the conversation about Act 20. And summer school and summer semester came up in that conversation, is that there would be implications for summer school programming moving forward around some of what is required. And so I'm curious, would the implications show up in this upcoming summer, or it would be summer of 26?
It'll be summer of 26, and this is.
Okay.
law.
Okay.
DPI is supposed to release a draft of what that policy should look like sometime this month.
Okay,
We will review it. For us in MMSD. It will not go into effect until July 1st of 25, which means it will impact summer of 26, but not this summer, because we're already full on planning for this summer.
okay, great, thank you for that. Lastly, I'll just say, you know, I'm curious to learn about how you all are moving forward with the Freedom School program. Was Mendota selected because, tell me why Mendota was selected.
Yeah, I think that is a great question. Mendota was selected for a few reasons. One, we looked at their data in terms of the opportunities for students that would need additional literacy
Okay,
focus. It is one of our highest need schools based on students from free and reduced lunch application status. It has our highest concentration of students of color, specifically Black students, and it is a community school that is situated in a neighborhood close to like the Packers area and other areas that we thought would be great partners for us. It is also a summer school site, and so we wanted to be able to connect it with the resources we have for summer. So breakfast and lunch, transportation, some of those other things as well. So that's the reason why it was chosen. We had other schools in mind also that met a lot of that criteria, but based on that and based on it being a summer school site, we thought it was well situated to test it out. And we're really excited.
awesome. When I hear Freedom Schools, it takes me to a very deep historical place. So I'm excited about it, and I hope that it doesn't get implemented in a way that doesn't bring some of the historical spirit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to imagine a Freedom School.
I think it's one of the reasons President Nichols oversaw 50 students. That, you know, the day starts with Harambe time, which is an affirmation, culture building. Yeah, it's right to start the day. Students might come in, their eyes might be half closed, but 5 minutes, fully engaged into the activity, ready to go for the day. And again, because there are small groups, the personal attention, it's just designed to keep students engaged and moving and learning.
So, are we planning to use like Title I funds to help amplify and support this? Are there grant dollars that we applied for, or how how are we, supporting the
Yep,
implementation?
it's a great question. One, I just want to add one thing to what Dr. Gothard said. I think the intensive training that they provide and who is going to be providing the services to our students deeply matter. So we're being very thoughtful about that. We are paying for it with, some is being covered through our summer school budget, and then some is being covered through other dollars that we have available. So we are not at this point accessing grant dollars. We are absorbing what we have. I think if we continue to think about expansion, that's a different conversation.
Okay. And are the summer school staff that end up working at Mendota? Is everyone who works at Mendota for the summer trained in the Freedom School approach? Or is it just a set of like reading teachers or grade level or?
Great question. So it's gonna be separate, so it'll be at the same site. But there'll be students that will be engaged in our traditional summer programming. And then we will have students, 50 students that will be part of Freedom School. So separate staff, separate programming for students.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Board Vice President Pearson.
Yeah. My computer died on me, so just a second. I just have to get the memo back up. So yeah, I had a question just about one thing that MMSD has always done really well at is coming up with a bunch of different programs, doing a bunch of different things. I feel like we're always pretty innovative. But one thing I'm still unsure about, and I think I've been unsure about for a very long time, is just how we are kind of looking at our programming to see how effective they have been. And over time, so for instance, so the Arts Academy is something that, you know, I was really excited when it started a couple of years ago. And here we are in, I think, the third year, right? Yeah, the third year. And so like, how are we still like measuring it to make sure that we are, you know, it's doing well and it's something that we can continue investing in as we are looking to grow other programs. It's not the only one. It's just like in general, how are we kind of measuring where we're at, not only just using attendance, because attendance can be kind of arbitrary. And then the other part of that question is how are we kind of bringing in like voices, like student voices? Are they actually enjoying these courses? You know, they might be forced to be in them because their parents are making them be a part of them. But are they actually feeling like they're getting things out of it? How are we measuring, I guess, the qualitative parts of it?
So we do have student surveys and we've collected some of that. We've changed some of our arts programming based on trial and error, but Dan, our director of arts, is here, so I'll let Dan answer that a little more if you want to in terms of board member Pearson's question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Some of the survey data tells us good things about what students are feeling and what families are feeling and what some of our staff are saying as well. I'll give one example, and this goes to a question that kind of came forward earlier. How are we replicating some of this in our schools during the regular school year? One example is we have roughly this year, we had roughly 10 artists, we call guest artists, who come in and teach kind of their specialty. So we have a bit of an explicit focus on dance because dance isn't inherently built into our legislative code the same way that art and music are. And so like a few dance examples, we partner with the UW Dance Exchange is one of our kind of contractors who have guest artists that come in. We have street dance such as hip hop, crump, house, freestyle. We have Latin ballroom, urban dance. There's also a theater course. One of the dance instructors was rather popular, so much so at Thoreau Elementary School that the Thoreau principal, Emily, called me up and said, what can I do to bring them in? The families love it, the kids love it. And we have something called the Equitable Arts Access Fund, which is a seed money, $500 that is available to schools to bring artists in. And they use that as starting money. Their PTO gathered a little bit of money. I think Emily might have thrown a little bit from wherever she could. And now that artist is teaching within the school on a limited basis, but it's still, we're replicating some of the work from the summer. That's one example. We're doing a little of that with a hip hop artist. His name's Dari Ruiz. Ruiz, who has also been working in some of our middle and high schools. And that's all based on some of the experiences, the positive experiences that are happening over the summer. So we are working to replicate it. I'm working with local organizations, our arts organizations, to really build deeper partnerships, trust, and also lean on them, like the seats program are seats that we purchase. So our students can attend spaces that they might otherwise not be able to attend. But I also want to leverage some of them. And maybe you can also give up 2 seats. We're going to buy 10 and you're going to give up 2 also, because we really want to make this a partnership. So we're looking to, make strong relationships happen with our local arts organizations and bring experiences forward for kids. One, for higher levels of engagement in the summer, but also looking for ways to expand during the regular school year too.
Thank you for that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. More specifically with the Summer Arts Academy. I know that with the summer program, part of the focus was that for the arts program, part of the focus was bringing in like students of color and being more intentional about that. I guess I didn't see here in the memo about that, but I could be wrong. Just specifically for that.
The seats program in particular.
So the SEEDS program replaced our Arts Academy or no?
It didn't really replace anything. It was just a kind of an ad and that we've kind of had, it's varied a little bit depending upon how many seats were available. And then I would also lift that all of the guest artists that Dan had mentioned that are presenting or performing and experiencing with the students who are in summer semester. Summer semester is largely overrepresented of students of color and students who are favored in lunch as well. So it is really targeting a population of students who are.
Is the arts or is it the SEEDS? Or both?
Actually,
Both.
both.
Okay.
And the SEEDS program, just to provide so everyone understands what the SEEDS program is, in case we don't know what that is. That's the community-based arts organizations that run their programming throughout the city. That's usually a paid for opportunity. And what we have done is bought seats at those community-based programs so that our students can attend free of charge. So it's outside of the summer programming day, whereas some of the other things that are mentioned fall under kind of our summer programming, which is serving any student that's accessing summer school, then gets those arts program. The SEEDS program is a big, and our target population is definitely students of color.
Okay. Okay. My other questions were already pretty much asked and answered. I guess I just made the last comment. Just, I'm always thinking about how are we like evaluating and making sure that, that we're being good stewards of dollars, but also that we are making the investments in the innovation and the things that our families want and our kids need. And so I'm always thinking about what things are we going to not continue or just have not been successful for whatever reason, and that's fine. Like, because everything we're going to try doesn't mean that it's actually going to pan out to be successful. But if not, then like how we were making sure that we're ending those things and pivoting somewhere else so that we don't just have like a plethora of programming and large amounts that are just 3 students, 2 students in the whole 26, almost 26,000 students in our district.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. And I would say, I think over the last 2 years, that's happened with courses. We've had courses that we think might be a good course and 2 or 3 students sign up. So it's we're not going to run because it doesn't make sense. Same thing with some of the Summer Arts Academy that we've learned 2 years ago. There were things that we thought were going to be good and were not successful. So I think we're trying to continuously create iterative processes that allow for that. And we'll continue to do this. I agree. We're testing some things out. Some are successful and some are or some are not meeting the needs of what students and families want.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would like to know those things too sometimes. Like, I know that it's always great to hear all the great things that we're doing and all of the innovative things that we're doing or we're starting. But even if something isn't panning out, like, it's always good to know, like, okay, at least we tried.
Thank you for that.
Megan.
I just wanted to take a minute and speak to some of the MSCR programs that I've personally done. My first job was for MSCR in the summer of 2021, and I liked it so much I went back for 2 more years. And what I really, really liked about it was the fact that MSCR not only focused on giving all of these certifications and all of this on the job training, but also really teaching people how to work in a non-toxic work environment and how to form healthy relationships with your coworkers and all of that stuff that you really only learn on your first job. So thank you for like taking the time to really flesh that out in the job training, because I don't think many jobs do otherwise. And then the other thing I want to highlight is the only reason I stopped MSCR was to do a work-based learning internship at Dane County Public Health, which was also so cool because you spend all of this time working on a specific project. For me, it was writing a study, but you also, like, I spent time looking at like ticks and mosquitoes and like doing all of this crazy stuff that I never really thought I could do as a junior in high school, or also like wasn't aware that public health did at all in general. So thank you for like those amazing programs. And I know I am not the only student that absolutely loves them and will go back as long as they are able to. So yes, I also want to highlight in the memo, there's a point that says like especially with the high school students, there is an ask to have more online only courses. And I want to point this out just because I know that's something that some other students have expressed. I know this past year when I was looking to do some of these like first time credit courses, that was something I was unable to do just because it's in such a tight time window and sometimes, you know, things just don't fit. But I think there are so many students that are interested in having that opportunity to take a new class. And like, obviously some classes have to be in person. That's just the nature of it. But expanding out if possible into a more online asynchronous environment, I think you'd get a lot more interest just because students would have the ability to do so. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate all of your comments.
Thank you, Megan. Board Member Vandermeulen, you had a follow-up comment?
Yeah, I had a follow-up on the Act 20. As I had stated and we stated before, if you don't have extended school year, kids with disabilities, IEPs aren't necessarily followed under the Act 20 ramifications. Will that put students with special needs behind if they are already struggling to catch up?
I'm just looking at Dr. Molfender behind you, students, any student that is required through Act 20 to go to summer school, we think, I haven't seen any policy from the state level yet. It would be for any student that is eligible based on that. Again, we'll see policy draft from them and then you'll see policy draft sometime this spring. But that's our understanding. It would be it's all. It's an inclusive.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was my one question.
Yeah. And what are applications for MSC youth opening up?
Summer job applications, summer job postings will go up starting February 7th, I believe. Sometime
It's the
that's,
same time as ours.
look at that. Let's like collaborate.
Popular Friday.
All right. I want to thank you all so much for this presentation and for giving us kind of this nice runway to discuss summer school. I want to thank our voters for making it possible for us to fund the Arts Academy and to compensate educators fairly. I think it's a hard thing to remind people that a few years ago, we actually didn't have enough educators to staff summer school fully. And so I think there's a desire to see a more robust turnout, but you have to staff that. And so I think you have a year where you tell hundreds of families, we don't have the educator that you need for your child to attend this programming. that stifles some of the ability to grow, and the investment in our educators is really important. And so I think we were able to do that using ESSER funding, and we're able to continue to do that because our community voted overwhelmingly in support of our referendums. I really appreciate you all speaking to hiring and allowing students to explore their strengths. There's a little bit of language around what is and is not academic that I want some clarity on. So do we consider the study of arts an academic study?
Yes, art, I mean, during the school year and in our summer opportunities, many of those courses and those opportunities are absolutely academic. We do talk about some things in terms of enrichment, just that happen with non-certified staff in the afternoon through the MSCR portion, but otherwise, yes, we absolutely do.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Because I think if a student is studying graphic design, they're also studying technology. If a student is studying poetry or the art form that is poetry, they're also studying literacy, right? And so the juxtaposition of like, what is academic achievement or success versus what is recreational or entertainment based is something I hope we continue to tease out. My one question was specific to you. I don't want to get your name wrong, but I think it's David.
Dan?
Dan, I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Dan. I heard you speak to music. I heard you speak to visual arts. I'm wondering about things like pottery and theater and kind of how those opportunities are represented, especially because you don't see those incorporated into the regular school day as frequently.
Yeah, ceramics are popular in the, art. We're lucky in Wisconsin, like very fortunate, actually. I was an art teacher for 15 years before moving toward the administrative side. Wisconsin's unique. If you go to a handful of other states across the country, art and music isn't built into the legislative code. Like, it's not required. We are here K-6, and then it's required that we have opportunity available in grades 7 through 12. So we have a great foundation to work with, which is a good thing. Ceramics seen at most of our schools. There are kilns in every one of our schools. I've replaced a few since I started this job a year and a half ago. And over the summer, it would depend on the artist, the teacher, and their comfort with the kiln that they're maybe in, or if they're in an art room that has a kiln. So it's possible. I'd love to see more first-time credit at the high school. We're asking for proposals. We can't require them to propose a ceramics course, at any of our high schools. So we've been
Use this meeting to gently nudge.
exactly right. Listening out there. And theater, we had a course proposal for Spanish cinema, which isn't theater, but it's like the review. Like, it's really
Something that
but we didn't quite get it finalized, did we? But we're working to try to get it going this year. We did work with a theater artist that came into our schools and worked through some dramatic performances. We also have Whoopin' Soccer that's been a partner at Chavez and was it Elvium this past summer, I think. And I know we're looking forward to having them back too. So there's a performance element there. Yeah, there's a lot of room, right? But we're also constrained by money, and so it's kind of building out also who's interested in terms of our community artists who are out there, and who are we connecting with, and how are we building programming that really is full, as you're suggesting.
I greatly appreciate that explanation and the vast amount of opportunities that our young people get to explore. And I really hope that we get to continue to have this conversation. My last comment really piggybacks off of Vice President Pearson's comments earlier. I think there's like both how we invest and where we invest. And so part of my struggle with the Summer Arts Academy as a person who's a pretty profound supporter of arts education is not to back in my day, y'all, but back in my day, there was greater investment in the arts. And part of that meant that you could take strings in 3rd grade and 4th grade. And so part of what I've been curious about is in locating resources in summer school, are we missing an opportunity to expand those same opportunities during the school year in which a greater number of our students would have access to them? And that is something I hope we really take into consideration. It is a really wonderful thing to get to offer band and orchestra over the summer. But there is, in my sense, a almost kind of competing between, do we want to continue to locate that opportunity in summer school, or do we want to expand that opportunity in early childhood in our elementary school program? So I hope we're able to think critically about where, why, how we make sure that the vast majority of our young people access the kinds of opportunities that really kind of set your soul on fire when you're a kid. So with that being said, if there are no further questions or discussion related to summer school, I want us to move into our next topic area.
Great, thank you, Chair Muldrow. Appreciate all the conversation on summer school. It's really exciting for us to continue to build. Up next is our report on the Superintendent's Wellness Advisory. I'm going to have Assistant Superintendent kind of walk you through where we are today. I know that Ashley Putzler is with us as well online. Ashley, great, glad to have you with us. And again, I think my first experiences with the Superintendent's Wellness Advisory, we have a long list of work that's been done, and I think the charge of this group is to get some things down a priority where we can really make an impact on a few things versus trying to address everything that's come up in the iterations or ongoing plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cindy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gothard, and thank you, Board Chair Muldrow. As Dr. Gothard said, in front of you, you have a memo, which is a minor tonight, an update on our Superintendent's Wellness Advisory. Ashley Plutzer, who leads this work, is online with us tonight. I'll just share a couple things before I turn it over to her. A reminder that we are going into year 2 of this work. This work really started with an ad hoc group that was kind of run and formed by the Board of Education related to safety and security, as well as work that we had done in relation to our wellness policy. And last year, the decision was made to kind of morph those two things together and create an advisory that was going to look at all the data that had been collected from both of those entities and begin to think about how to prioritize the things that had been named through the ad hoc, and think about what else was happening throughout the community and in our schools that needed to be taken into consideration. And so with that, I'll just let Ashley kind of walk you through some highlights of the memo and then turn it back to you, Board Chair Muldrow, for any questions. Ashley, can you hear us? And are you good to go?
Yeah, yep, I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you both for the introduction and for bringing this topic to this space this evening. As Cindy said, my name is Ashley Plutzer, she, her pronouns. I currently serve as the Physical Education, Health, and Wellness Coordinator for MMSD. So part of my role is to work with the with school wellness and the wellness policy, and also the Superintendent's Wellness Advisory. As Cindy said, year 2, kind of merging the idea of a district wellness advisory council with Board of Ed ad hocs, and coming together to create an ongoing space for students, staff, families, and community to come together, not only to have conversations in more an authentic way, but also to advise department leads on recommendations to improve school wellness for students and staff. One of the unique aspects of this group is that the voices are directly connected to the superintendent, different department leads. We have once a month school wellness lead implementation team meetings where we bring the information and input from stakeholders from the advisory meetings back to department leads, and also vice versa, just to create better communication. And then also to just continue to make sure that our school and district improvements are aligned with whether it's the recommendations from past board ad hocs or things that are in the wellness policy, but to continue to have efforts align with what our stakeholders need. One update that I just want to share briefly is that this past fall, we have a new revised school wellness website. The design was intended to make things like more accessible to stakeholders, but then also so the website, there's kind of like four main components. One is looking at just the wellness policy in general, information on that, one on the superintendent's wellness advisory, and then there's also more information around wellness liaisons that are within our schools, and then also how to communicate back. So really starting to just tackle different avenues for stakeholder communication, and that being two-way communication, not just always when needed, but when others want to share input as well. This year so far, we've had 2 superintendent wellness advisory meetings. The first meeting, we had some new members this year. So we really anchored in the purpose of the advisory, and then connecting what's called the WISC model, the whole school, whole community, whole child model, with the wellness policy and the ad hoc recommendations. So just really digging into looking at how all of these things intersect. And then members learned about progress made in these areas. This may be shared before, but last year, the 3 top priority themes that came out were student mental health and well-being, staff mental health and well-being, and nutrition. And just to highlight a few celebrations, one of the recommendations from the ad hoc safety and wellness committee was that all salad bars are back up and running, and that is now completed. There are 2 schools that, due to like the configuration of the kitchen, can't at this point, but all the schools that are able to have salad bars are back and running. Other input that members shared, just how much the renovated spaces have impacted student and staff well-being. That came from students and building staff. And so just to hear about how that just impacts your day-to-day presence in school. And then also specifically, another thing that was highlighted was the new restorative justice spaces and just the common areas in the high schools, allowing just more connection between students and to be in community with each other. And then
we can figure out why it keeps switching from one to the other.
I have absolutely no idea. I have no capacity to fix that.
can you all still hear me okay, or?
Yes.
Yeah, just having a technical thing on our
Yeah,
end.
sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. And then another positive thing was the improved varieties of school lunches, and then improved access to menus. And then the next steps after the second semester, the advisory will come together for 2 more meetings this year. We will dig into some data. We this last month and a half, we administered a assessment progress tool to schools that was called the Healthy and Thriving Schools Progress Tool, to really look at implementation at the school level of not only wellness policy wellness policy implementation, but also collecting like what's working well, what supports do schools need, and then going to be connecting them with the right people and supports and resources. And then lastly, the wellness policy will come up for revision in the fall of 2025. So that will be something else that we kind of dive into for the last 2 meetings. And that is my update. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Ashley, before I turn it back over to Board Chair Muldrow, I just wanted to also mention, which I had forgotten, is this is co-led with our youth. And last year it was Lavinia, and this year it's Annabella, if I recall, who is Ashley's co-chair for this work. So it happens with both of them. And Barb Osborne has also been working with Ashley as well. So just important that this is co-led by one of our youth. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Board Chair Muldrow.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I am excited to jump into this conversation. I do want to highlight that both Board Member Castro and Board Vice President Pearson have worked on this suite or body of work extensively. And deeply appreciate the leadership you all have brought to it over the years. With that being said, we'll hear from Board Member Simpkin, then Board Member Mosner-Feltham.
Thank you. Ashley, thank you for that update. I am reminded how much falls into the category of wellness. And I'm interested in hearing a little bit more around what you have found as the connection between our renovated schools and well-being for students and for staff.
Yeah, and I think in this space with the advisory, we do have some more notes from our different small groups that had gotten together that shared more details about that. But it was kind of the two prompts were in the meeting, like, what do you notice different in your buildings? And then what areas do you still want to see improved upon? And that's where that input came from. But that was just specific to the advisory. So it'd be interesting to look maybe more broadly of that impact.
I'd be really interested to know if we can parse out some more of those details as we start this new round of rebuilding schools and thinking about, how can we make sure we're deliberately including aspects that are contributing to wellness. So that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Mosner-Feltham.
Thanks. Could you tell me a little bit more about the development of the tool that you use, the MSD Healthy and Thriving Schools Progress Tool?
Yeah, so one of DPI's requirements with the wellness policy is a triennial assessment, which includes 3 different pieces. One, that school districts measure their quality of their wellness policy every 3 years and report out the results, that they share out data of implementation of that wellness policy, and then also updates on the goals that were within that policy. And so part of the implementation measurement, there is several different tools that are out there that exist. So one example is the Alliance for Healthier Generation. They have a great assessment tool that's but it's quite extensive, and it's they have their own platform. So I feel like if we were to ask schools to complete it, it would take a lot of, just the navigation of getting onto that system would be, not to say that we won't do that, but that's one that exists. And then the school Action for Healthy Kids used to have, that was the one that the state used, DPI, for the Healthy Schools Awards. But so we kind of just took questions that were similar to those and looked at those tools to pull from and make it specific to our language and our Madison policy, and to make sure that we weren't asking things that aren't in our policy necessarily, because then it's kind of like assessing kids on stuff that we never taught, kind of thing. So yeah, that's where it comes from. It's really heavy in the policy language, but then also asks what supports are needed in the different areas, and also places for people to ask or to celebrate successes too. So I'm excited to work with research and innovation to dive into that data.
Thanks. Can you tell me, do students respond to the tool? Is it school-based leadership teams? Like, who is completing the tool? Who's using it?
That's a good question. So principals got the email, the communication to complete the assessment. We also have school-based wellness liaisons in buildings, which are default to the school nurse, that also helped because the way that the assessment tool is created is that you may need to collaborate with, or you would need to be able to collaborate with different people within your building to answer some of the questions, and just to make sure that you have the best data. And so ultimately principal submits, but also it's a team effort, I would say, within like, for instance, the food and nutrition staff and maybe the FIED teacher, things like that.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you. Do you know sort of like, super excited to see what the results are. I know that you are too. Do you know kind of like when, like, is that June? Is that next fall? Like what sort of feels like the timeline for you?
Our next superintendent's wellness advisory meeting is in about a month, a little bit over a month. And so my hope is to have some kind of higher level data points for that meeting. But as far as like, if it's a school kind of report card format or not report card format, but like that not at that point.
Great. Thank you
Yes.
for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, board member. Megan, your questions?
I apologize because I have a couple, but hopefully they'll be quick. First, I see like bathroom safety, bathroom cleanliness, repeated like a couple times. Can you like clarify a little bit what you mean by bathroom safety?
Yeah, so there's been few conversations at advisory meetings that kind of have come from students and then also some from staff. And so from students and staff, sometimes it's more of like the cleaning or having the right supplies, you know, toilet paper, things like that in the bathroom when needed. So that's kind of like one conversation that happens. And then the other conversation is more of like the safety and feeling safe going into the restrooms. And that also stems with like maybe behaviors that could be happening in the bathroom that such as like if it's vaping, like I'm sharing some examples or just not feeling safe going in there. Also setup of restrooms, there's different styles of bathrooms, things like that. And I would say that also could be for staff, but that would be more for students as far as hearing from the youth saying about the feeling safe to use the restroom and yeah, during the day.
Thank you so much. If I remember correctly, when the ad hoc advisory committee or like that board group was meeting like 2 years ago, there was also a suggestion about like school-based health centers and I think it's like a 5 to Thrive program. Is that part of what you are working on? And if so, like, how does that project tie into this?
That's a great question. So how I would describe it is the wellness policy and the work that I do, the work lives in the different departments of the district. So for instance, school-based health centers is one of the recommendations that was identified by the ad hoc, and we have been maintaining progress updates in our grid document that we have, and that was updated and shared with members. I'm not leading that work per se. That will be like health services teams and mental health, things like that. So you mentioned the school-based health centers, and then the 5 to Thrive. That is also so the mental health team with Kristen Gotchow leading that work. It was Leah Esser around hearing from people that we have access to these resources, but not necessarily knowing how or where to access them. And so the 5 to Thrive was in response to the recommendations that were made by that group, if that makes sense.
Can I just add one thing to that? The school-based health centers were a result of the ad hoc, and so in conjunction with the 2020 referenda is how those came to be, and as Ashley said. And then as Ashley mentioned, the 5 to 5 was because last year we heard from students most specifically that while there's mental health resources, not everyone was aware of how to access or what those resources were, which is where that campaign came. A couple of the actions that have happened through.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My last question is within nutrition, it says that there's a REAP program. Do you mind expanding on what that is a little?
Yeah, I can get you more information on it probably after the meeting. But just a quick summary is it's a nonprofit organization within the community that works with the school district to provide access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and local, produce. Again, that's a very small snippet of what they do, but, so in some of our elementary schools, the students receive, I think, 3 times a week or 2 to 3 times a week, fresh fruits and vegetables, through that program. And then there's other aspects too.
Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Cindy, could I add one more thing, please? Are you
Oh.
okay? This is Barb.
Hi, Barb.
Hey, hi, everybody. So a really good example, Megan, I just want to clarify that the group, the wellness group is really about a continuous feedback loop, getting information about things that people are concerned about or have input on. It's not focused on problem solving. It's more about getting the right people tasked to the item. So it's a really good shortcut from say a student, parent, or a community member about a thing, and then connecting them to people at the administration level or the implementation team that Ashley coordinates with, and getting some answers to questions, and yes, moving things along about things like, for example, in nutrition, the salad bar. So it's a short stop to get things going and to also keep in touch with the superintendent and the board about what things we are touching on. It is not a problem solving thing. It is a feedback loop thing that keeps things going, so that when people say, okay, I want to talk to somebody about this thing, they actually get an answer to whatever it is. And then if it's a priority for the wellness group and the superintendent is on board with it, that carries forward until we've done what we can do. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. So it's a vehicle, it is not a problem-solving body.
Thank you for that, Barb. I would just add, I think one of the areas of improvement this year is trying to figure out how all those members are able to talk to their stakeholder groups for that feedback loop, those that are staff at school. So we're working with them on that versus coming as individuals, is I think something that has been improving this year along the way to really realize what the group was. But thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Megan. Those were excellent. I want to say that this feels like an incredibly timely conversation, given that right before we had break, our community experienced a school shooting tragedy. And I think the school safety is at top of mind for many of the young people we serve and our educators and their families. And so I really appreciate the depth of this conversation and the depth of this work. And also, I think it's important to remember that over the course of the last half a decade, this board has had 3 ad hocs that were dedicated specifically to student safety and wellness. And so my question is for Barb, because you've gotten to see this board through all 3 iterations of that ad hoc committee. How are we progressing in terms of the goals that are common threads through each of those committees?
I think that the Superintendent Gothard pointed out that list is quite long. The recommendations were huge. But what really was great about Ashley and I coming together with this was that we could scoop all of that up. We could put it in one place. We could present it to stakeholder groups and the superintendent at the same time and say, okay, this is where we're at with all of these things. And we have like a virtual check sheet that says, okay, how we doing on this? How we doing on that? What's progress on this? What's progress on that? Is this done? Is this going to be ongoing? Should we drop this? It's a vehicle that is getting us somewhere, as opposed to some wonderful recommendations that come from ad hoc committees and then maybe losing track of that. So this keeps track of that and will be ongoing forever until we get done with that particular dimension of this, and we just keep moving forward and we have new priorities and we keep ticking off stuff on the list. it's kind of mechanical in one way, but that's how it works. It's just really a great one-stop shop.
I really appreciate that, and I'm always excited to see you, Barb, and grateful that you're sticking with us after all these years. And Ashley, I really appreciate your presentation and contribution to this work long term as well. My last question is for you, Dr. Gothard. I think when we talk about safety, a lot of the conversation is about whether or not we feel safe. And although I have incredible respect for how safe people feel, I do think that there are material realities of safety in our schools. And so in terms of data related to, you know, how often a student, I think we go to great lengths to keep our young people safe, to make sure that our young people don't come into contact with the things that they're allergic to make sure that our young people get their medications on time at school, all of those sorts of things. But there are errors and there are like moments of discovery, right? Like you might bring your kiddo to school one day and find out that they are allergic to something, and then we have to respond to that. So in terms of the data related to safety, how are we kind of measuring whether or not our schools are actually getting safer in a material way?
I think we have some traditional ways of looking at that data that we have trends on, you know, for a long time. I mean, the bathroom phenomena is not the first time I've heard this, and not the first district I've heard this in, and certainly read about it nationally as well. It's just odd cycles that sometimes, you know, schools and young people go through for lots of reasons. I think that we need to create that awareness at each school, because it could look very different at schools in terms of what are the issues of safety that they might experience, whether it be, we heard earlier this year about playgrounds that don't have fences. You know, that's a very specific thing to some campuses, but not all. And I think anything that we address safety wise has to take into account the individual nuances or needs of a school community, because it's going to be far different. Our high schools are open campus, our other campuses are not. You know, there's a very different way we look at lunch safety in those two, you know, through those two lenses. So again, I don't know that there's one answer that is, or one set of data that will address, are we more safe at our schools overall? Because I think that there does need to be that individual look at, you know, each of our campuses. So I'd be curious to take this back to the committee. You know, are there some ways that we could create those individual dashboards at schools that would really factor in perhaps their priorities? You know, what's most pressing for them? Because it might not be an issue at another school, or it might not even be a reality at another school, just based on age or open campus, closed campus, what have you.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about is, you know, workers' comp, and like when you have staff who are working overtime, specifically our custodial staff, there's an increase in likelihood of injury. And then for our students, I think the same thing is like, if we're seeing more or less instances of injury, I think we need to be aware of that. And so if we know, oh, this particular piece of equipment, something that year after year, young people are like, you know, finding themselves getting bumps or bruises, or maybe even things that are more severe, how are we honing in on those spaces? And I really appreciate your answer, both for the thoroughness, but also for the reference to a specific person who came forward in public comment and said, this is what I'm really worried about for my kiddo. And I think if I was that parent and I heard you reference that, I would know that you were listening to me, and it would mean a tremendous amount. So thank you for your leadership. I saw Board President Nichols.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I was just gonna also acknowledge is that when the board had the ad hoc committees before, and there was a lot more, I feel like, board members engaged, and like the recommendations always coming back to the board. And then those ad hoc committees kind of, disbanded and moved into the superintendent's wellness advisory. I believe board member Castro, to keep the thread of continuity, stayed involved last year, right? And then this year, I'm now serving as kind of like that board designee. So what I think this conversation is also reminding me of is how I can also engage you all as I go to those meetings, and maybe share some updates, just coming out of the meetings, well, instead of waiting just for the kind of the official updates. 'Cause I know that we used to be more actively involved as a board, so I can do that as well.
Thank you so much, Board President Nichols. I don't see any further questions or discussion from board members. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Ashley.
Ashley.
Thank you, Barb.